What if the person pouring your coffee today was the missing piece of your soul you've been searching for 30 long years? One simple tattoo changed everything, and what happened next will leave you in tears. My long-lost brother had the same tattoo, the waitress said. The billionaire froze in shock. Rebecca wiped down the counter at Murphy's Diner for the 100th time that morning, her tired hands moving in the same steady rhythm they had for the past 8 years. At 36, she had grown comfortable with routine, with predictability, the gentle hum of regular customers who knew her name and took their coffee black. But when the sleek black car pulled into the parking lot that Tuesday morning, everything she thought she knew about her life was about to shatter. The man who stepped out wore a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His confident stride carried him through the door like he owned the world. Maybe he did. But it wasn't his expensive watch or perfectly styled hair that made Rebecca's breath catch in her throat. It was something far more personal, far more impossible, peeking out from beneath his shirt sleeve. The morning had started like any other at Murphy's Diner, with the familiar sound of bacon sizzling and coffee brewing. Rebecca had been working there since her divorce 8 years ago, when she needed a fresh start and a steady paycheck to support her teenage daughter. The regulars knew her story: single mom, hardworking, always a kind word and a warm smile no matter what life threw at her. She had built a quiet life in this small town, far from the chaos of her childhood in foster care. James Mitchell slid into booth 7, the same booth where the town's retired school teacher usually sat with her crossword puzzle. But Mrs. Henderson was nowhere to be seen today. Instead, this stranger, clearly not from around here, studied the simple menu with polite patience that said he was used to much fancier places. Rebecca approached with the coffee pot, her practiced smile ready. "Morning, hon, coffee to start?" she asked, already reaching for the mug. "Please," he replied, his voice carrying just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. "And thank you?" As she poured, Rebecca noticed his hands, soft, manicured, the hands of someone who had never known hard work. But when he reached for the sugar, her eyes caught something that made her almost drop the coffee pot. There, on his inner wrist, was a tattoo. Not just any tattoo, a small anchor with a rope twisted around it, exactly the same as one she remembered from long, long ago. "That's an unusual tattoo," she heard herself say before she could stop. James glanced down at his wrist, then back at her with a puzzled look. "I've had it since I was 18. Got it with, well, it was a long time ago." He paused, his face darkening a little. Rebecca's heart began to race. The anchor with that exact rope design wasn't common. She had only seen it once before, on a scared 12-year-old boy who had shared a foster home with her for 3 short months before he vanished from her life forever. A boy who promised there would always be family no matter what. A boy named Jamie. Rebecca steadied herself against the table, her mind spinning. Could this rich, polished man really be the same frightened boy who held her hand during thunderstorms at the Henderson foster home? Jamie had been her protector back then, even though he was only 2 years older. When other kids teased her about her second-hand clothes or the way she stuttered when nervous, Jamie stepped in with quiet courage that made him seem so much older. "I'm sorry," James said, noticing her stare. "Is everything all right?" "The tattoo," Rebecca whispered, her voice barely there. "Did you get it with your sister?" The coffee mug slipped from James's fingers, hot coffee splashing across the table. His face went completely white, and for a moment Rebecca saw the scared little boy she once knew hiding behind the rich man's mask. "How could you possibly know that?" he asked, his voice shaking. Rebecca sank into the booth across from him, her legs too weak to hold her up. "Because I have the same one." She rolled up her sleeve and showed the identical anchor and rope tattoo on her own wrist. "My brother and I got matching ones before they separated us." James stared at the tattoo, then at her face, searching for anything he might remember after almost 25 years. "Becca," he whispered, using the nickname only one person had ever called her. "Little Becca from the Henderson house." Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. All those years of wondering, of searching social media for any sign of the brother who swore he would find her. All those nights she traced her tattoo with her finger, remembering the teenager who worked odd jobs to save money for their matching ink, who promised they would be together again someday. I looked for you, James said, his own eyes shining. For years I looked everywhere. But when they moved you to that family in Ohio, the Clarks, Rebecca finished for him. They changed my last name when they adopted me. I tried to find you too, but Jamie Mitchell had disappeared. The weight of 25 years of separation hung between them, mixed with pure joy that felt too big for the little diner booth. But then Rebecca noticed a shadow cross James's face, something that said this reunion might not be as simple as she had dreamed. James pulled his hands back, and the rich businessman's walls went up again. This is incredible, he said, but his voice had turned careful, controlled. I can't believe it's really you. Rebecca felt a sudden chill. Jamie, what's wrong? Aren't you happy? I spent my whole life wondering if you were okay, if you even remembered me. Of course I remember you, he said quickly, but he was already glancing toward the door. It's just complicated. My life now, it's very different. I have responsibilities, a company, people depending on me. The words hit Rebecca like a slap. She had pictured this moment 1,000 times, tears of joy, promises never to lose each other again, finally having family. She never pictured polite distance from the boy who once shared his last piece of bread with her. I work for Mitchell Enterprises, she said quietly. The cleaning service I'm with has your office building contract. I've been cleaning your company's floors for 3 years, never knowing. James's face fell even more. You clean our building. The shame in his voice hurt worse than anger. Rebecca straightened her shoulders, pulling on the pride that had carried her through every hard year. Yes, I clean floors, and I wait tables, and I raised a beautiful daughter all by myself. I'm not ashamed of my work, Jamie. But I can see you are. That's not... He started, then stopped. Silence stretched between them, filled with the ordinary clatter of dishes in a diner that had just seen something extraordinary. I used to tell myself stories about you, Rebecca went on, her voice steady even as tears threatened. How you became successful, how you found a good life. I was proud of you before I even knew who you became. But I never imagined you'd be embarrassed by where we came from. By me. James's perfect composure finally cracked. I'm not embarrassed by you, Becca. I'm embarrassed by me. By the fact that I had the money to find you and I gave up. By the fact that I've been so busy building walls around my success that I forgot what really matters. The truth hung raw and painful between them, but maybe it was exactly what they needed. Rebecca watched years of guarded emotion break through James's polished outside. His shoulders shook as he buried his face in his hands, and suddenly she was looking at the scared 12-year-old again, the boy who cried quietly into his pillow so no one would hear. I had nightmares for years about losing you, he whispered. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw you crying as they drove you away. I promised myself I'd become successful enough to take care of you, to give you everything you deserved. But somewhere along the way, I became someone I don't even recognize. Rebecca slid around to his side of the booth, grabbing napkins for his tears like the big sister she always wanted to be. Oh, Jamie, you were 14 years old. You couldn't stop them from separating us. But I could have tried harder later. I could have hired people, used my connections. He looked up at her with eyes full of regret. Instead, I told myself you were better off without the reminder of those terrible foster years. Those weren't all terrible, Rebecca said softly. The 3 months we had together, those were some of the happiest of my childhood. You taught me how to be brave, how to stand up for myself. You showed me what it meant to have someone who cared. James pulled out his phone with shaking fingers and scrolled to a photo. I still have this, he said, showing her a creased picture of 2 kids with matching gap-toothed grins, arms tight around each other. I've carried it in every wallet for 25 years. Rebecca gasped. She had lost her copy years ago in one of many moves, but seeing it again brought every memory rushing back. How they begged Mrs. Henderson to take that photo. How they promised to always remember. I have something too, Rebecca said, pulling a small, smooth stone painted blue from her pocket. You gave me this on my last day at the Henderson house. You told me to keep it so I'd never forget I had a brother who loved me somewhere out there. The moment James looked into her eyes and saw only the same unconditional love they shared as kids, everything changed. I want to meet your daughter, he said suddenly. I want to know everything about your life, and I want you to know mine, the real me, not the one I've been hiding behind. 3 hours later, the lunch rush had come and gone, but Rebecca and James were still in booth 7, surrounded by empty coffee cups and a lifetime of stories. Rebecca had called her manager and taken the afternoon off for the best kind of family emergency. James learned about Rebecca's daughter Katie, a bright 17-year-old who dreamed of studying environmental science. He heard about Rebecca's quiet strength, raising her girl alone, building a life from nothing. Rebecca learned that her brother's success came with deep loneliness. That despite all his money, he had never married, never had children, never let anyone close enough to risk losing them again. I want to help with Katie's college tuition, James said as afternoon sun poured through the windows. Jamie, no. Rebecca shook her head. That's not why I told you about her. We're doing fine on our own. I know you are. You've done an incredible job. But let me be her uncle. Let me be part of her life and yours, not as some rich stranger, but as family. He reached across and squeezed her hand. I've spent 25 years trying to fill the hole you left when they took you away. I don't want to waste another day. Rebecca smiled through happy tears. She's going to love you. She's always wanted an uncle, and she makes the best chocolate chip cookies, almost as good as Mrs. Henderson's. You remember those? James laughed, the first real laugh all day. How could I forget? You always saved me the biggest one. As afternoon turned to evening, they made real plans, Sunday dinners, family holidays, all the ordinary moments that would stitch their lives back together. James would start coming to the diner regularly, not as a customer, but as the brother who finally came home. He had already canceled 2 important meetings and turned off his phone, calling this the most important business of his life. When they finally stood to leave, James pulled Rebecca into a hug that lasted 30 seconds too long and felt 30 years overdue. I love you, little sister, he whispered. I love you too, big brother, she whispered back. The anchor tattoos on their wrists pressed together as they held each other, symbols of a bond that survived foster care, separation, and decades of wondering. They were home at last, not to a place, but to each other. Sometimes the most important meetings happen in the most ordinary places.